well, I don't know how many years on this earth I got left. I'm gonna get real weird with it.
Sex goblins, horse laughs, and cannibalism. Welcome to another episode of Get Real Weird With It, where I talk about fringe and alternative books. So these books were purchased thanks to the generosity of Tom, so thank you very much, Tom. Without much further ado, let me tell you about what I read this time around. So I'm going to go in order of my least favourite to my most favourite, beginning with Custody of the Eyes by Diamela Altit, translated by Helen Lane and Ronald Christ. So as you can see, the book has a spot gloss M on the cover, and it's this really lovely shimmery metallic purple, and it has rounded edges, which I like. I do like that. The beginning of the pages have a lovely illustrated letter, and this is told in epistolary format. So it begins and ends in the perspective of a young boy who seems perhaps to have brain damage because his ramblings are very nonsensical and infantile. It's a whole lot of blubbering, and when I first opened the book, I was pretty much considering DNFing. I thought, if this book is in this format the entire time, I can't do it. There is just no way I can push through. It's got some interesting stylistic choices in terms of text. So as you can see, some of the text has a very different font type, but yeah, I thought there's no way. And luckily, that's just a sandwich. It's not the meat of the novel. So the meat of the novel is told through the mother's perspective, and she's writing letters to the father of her child. Most of the letters are about her pleading with or raging against this father's incessant need to control, surveil, criticize, and dictate her parenting style. He's blaming her for this violent event that occurred at his school, which I don't ever think is elucidated upon, but he's just constantly berating her, and she's just pleading with him to let her live and to let her be and to let her parent their son when he has no idea who their son is, what he likes, what their life is like. He doesn't live with them. He's on his high horse from afar, condemning her for everything, blaming her for everything. And she is just begging him to leave her be. This man obviously knows nothing about their child, but I found her daily letters just raging and pleading with this man to be exhausting. I'm like, babes, you have to protect your peace. You need to go no contact. This guy is doing nothing but inciting you and making you suffer. You're working yourself up. You're basically screaming into the void at this point. And this is draining both your energy and my energy. If a man wants to litigate, he's gonna litigate. But obviously she does not do that. So she continues to just interact with him, which is just feeding this cycle. The mother's voice reminds me of Virginia Woolf's style of writing. It is very flowery. It is absolutely utilizing the shit out of a thesaurus. Okay, so this book did take me a long time to read through because of the language and vernacular and vocabulary used. It was not easy to read quickly. You have to sit there and take your time. The writing is beautiful, but like I said, it's the content of the story. I just found it exhausting and tiresome. Alongside with this mother's choice to homeschool her impaired son after this incident, it's also set during some kind of very extreme cold weather, and she at one point takes in some homeless families to try to save their lives, which is also a point of contention with the ex-husband, so to speak. And there's just all of this sort of, I guess, themes about being judged and being watched and being scrutinized. But a lot of this book just seems to be circling things. It's very obscure, and it is not clear what is actually going on, especially when you read the last chapter in the son's perspective. It then brings into question, is there an unreliable narrator happening? But I don't actually understand what was occurring. I feel like maybe there was something else happening there, but I don't know what. I don't know how we got from her very coherent, anger-filled letters to that last chapter. I was like, what the fuck? So yeah, I was left scratching my head. And the writing is good. The themes I enjoyed. It's just, yeah, the subject matter and the way it was done, it just felt very repetitive. And like I said, it was very emotionally taxing. And the story itself was ambiguous. So The story wasn't for me. I have given it a 2.5 stars. And I just think that's more to do with the fact that I don't really understand what the hell was going on. But I think it was an interesting book. Like I said, I did like the writing style. It was very inventive too with the way it was done. But yeah, it was a bit too mysterious, I guess, for me. But I'm such a fan of the rounded edges. Love that. I don't know why this room always makes my face look 3 shades darker than the rest of my body. I've noticed that every time I watch the videos, just this room is lit that way. So rest assured, I do know how to color match my face to the rest of my skin, but in here, I just end up trumping it. Oh, I had a hair on my chest. Hopefully that wasn't too annoying for everybody. I'm slathered in shea butter, so I'm a bit sticky. The next book I read is To Be Devoured by Sarah Tuntlinger. And this is a queer horror thriller novella. It is published by Apocalypse Party, and you know what we're like. So people were calling this extreme horror. I don't feel like it is compared to the other books that I read in my spooky vlog and one of my other Get Real Weird With It vlogs. I've read a lot worse now. So I wouldn't consider it extreme, but perhaps it is. It's just like I said previously, I feel like I've been desensitized a bit. So yeah. But basically, the big question of this is, what's eating you inside? You have the main character, Andy, who is a woman, and her mind is a graveyard littered with tombstones of loss. She suffered a lot of loss. She's working with a psychologist to perhaps heal that, but she's also developed this fascination with vultures. She wants to be a bird.
Will you calm down? You're eating that cheese stick like some kind of giant bird, you know?
She's incredibly emo. With a tragic backstory, but she does come across as somewhat of an edgelord. She has a partner who is a woman, bisexual woman, and they're living together, and the book opens with her making these elaborate moth wings out of dead lunar moths. And she gives it to her girlfriend, and her girlfriend freaks the fuck out because, look guys, taxidermy is quite niche. It's an acquired taste. I would probably recommend not giving someone a gift of taxidermy unless you already know they're into taxidermy. But basically this ends up sort of triggering her collapse, so to speak. The issue that I have with this book, I just didn't like being in Andy's frame of mind. She came across as a simpering, Renfield-like character, just striving and wanting to be revered by these vultures who I don't think were even fucking aware of her existence. But her mind is just, like I said, it's super emo, guys, and I just found it to be overly dramatic in a cringe way. And it's clear that Andy is suffering from mental illness. So the book ended up just feeling a bit silly to me, a little bit extra. I couldn't take it seriously. There is a lot of body horror in there. I guess there are scenes that would shock people, but if you, for instance, loved the menstrual cunnilingus scene in Salt Blood, you're going to drool over this and eat it up. There's a lot of devouring and being devoured. There are animal deaths, murder. Like, yeah, I can understand why this would be classified as extreme horror, but because it just doesn't compare to the other things that I've read. So I found it fine. I didn't have an issue with it. And because of Andy's edgelord kind of inner commentary, it was a bit removed from the situation. I found it a bit farcical rather than taking everything seriously. So yeah, it was an interesting read. I've given it a 3 stars. I would read from this author again, depending on who the character is. So I think it just hinges upon, do I like this character and do I want to be in their head for so many pages? So next up, we have a really interesting book. This is quite interesting. This is called Sex Goblin by Lauren Cook, and this is printed on red paper with black ink. It also has some little doodles and scribbles here that remind me of stamps, and I was such a stamp fan when I was a tween. It's very word arty. It's also mixed media because you might have pages, like for instance, of lists. The book is a collection of, I would say, of short stories, diary-like entries, lists, observations, musings. It feels like a 14-year-old expressing themselves on Tumblr. And because of that, it had such a nostalgic feel. It just reminded me of the good old days. There are some funny statements in here. There are a bunch of aphorisms. And it feels like those threads on Reddit, like the relatable threads, you know, like me in real life or things of that nature. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with that. I'll read you one of the lines that had me cackling because I did laugh out loud with this. Google contacted me to tell me stop Googling swollen lymph nodes every day. They said I was annoying them. This book also has an incredibly strong scent, and people, I laughed when people were actually commenting about that on Goodreads, because I'm like, okay, it's not just me that thinks this is quite a unique scent. I feel like it smells like book day in the 90s at school. So you know when Scholastic, whoever it was, would come with all of their brand new books and their like pencils and pencil cases, and you got to go shopping and pick things. It smells like that day. But yeah, this was a lot of fun, and it made me smile. And I think I'll read to you one of the short stories. There's a few of them in here. Some of them are quite intense. I'll just say that. There's some naughty things going on as well. I think I am forever scarred by the image of what happens if you are sitting in the front seat with a dog on your lap and you get into a car crash. I'll just say that. But I'll read to you one of the stories. We'll have a little story time, because this also kind of smells like libraries in the 90s. Oh, there's also a lot of facts in here. I haven't fact checked them, but it was fun. It was just an almost randomized selection of tidbits, kind of like how your brain works. Anyway, oh, and the other thing, every time they did mention sex goblin, in my head, I just saw Eliza and her version of a party goblin.
You need to rage! Find the door guy, ask him if he has drugs, do not specify, see what he comes up with.
So this is just a two-page story. There was once a very bad and scary man. He would go around and find all the 4-leaf clovers and rip the 4th leaf off of them. This would turn the clover back into a regular 3-leaf clover, thus rendering the clover's magic wishing powers useless. One day he was punished. He met a witch in the woods. The witch was an old and wise woman who minded her business and practiced her magic outside of the village for many years. He had wandered to the edgelands, and the witch had witnessed him pulling the 4th clover leaf of 4-leaf clovers she had planted specifically because this is an ingredient in common magic spells and things like that. The witch in that instant had thought that was a crime of great proportions, very selfish and mean, and to make the man learn, she turned him into a pair of underwear. The witch had never showered or changed her underwear before. She took off her underwear, the underwear she had been wearing for the hundreds of years she had been alive and living in the woods, and threw them to the ground. The underwear hissed in the sunlight. They were stained brown like tea and covered with patches of blue-green lichen like mold. The UV rays were reacting with the potent chemicals that had become embedded in the cotton fabric over time, both through wear and magic. The witch approached her new underwear. This underwear was the man, and she lifted the pair up to her face to admire her workmanship. A pair of white cotton bikini-cut briefs with a small white bow in front on the elastic. She put them on and set her skirt back over her body. They felt good on her. The man would be fated to hundreds of years of being farted on, totally aware the whole time, unable to eat or sleep or relax, or never not be able to smell. The witch sighed with content and carried on with her day. She approached her bike, threw her legs over it, and took off in another direction, possibly to go harvest some wild herbs for tea, or maybe something else. Her underwear rubbed against the seat, and this pushed the acidic sweat dripping down her body into the cotton. It had begun. Always be happy for others' luck, and do not try to take it away. So I fucking love that. 4 stars. Enjoyed this. Definitely a novel reading experience. And the next book, this was recommended to me by Lydia, who said, hey, I think you might enjoy this for your Get Real Weird With It segment. And I looked it up and I thought, I don't know. It seems to be about art and artists, and I've not really enjoyed books about that. And she's like, I think you'll like it. And she was right. I did, surprisingly. So this is another reminder that just because I haven't liked books about certain topics in the past doesn't mean that I will never like books about certain topics. So this is Vivienne by Emily or Emilia Russo. I love the cover. It's gorgeous. So this is a rose petal finish, and this is classified as a litfic about art. So this story is also a mixed media format, which I find very entertaining. It's easier to read because it just keeps things novel and fresh, and it helps you like really speed through a book. So you have, for instance, tweets or posts, social media posts. You have then people's comments on those posts. There are letters published by certain companies and institutions. And then the regular book, which sometimes has inserts here. This is about faith and religion, but I just found it really fun. I did enjoy that aspect and stylistic choice in terms of how they told the story. You've got 3 generations of women living in a very sort of gothic type of house. You've got Vivienne, who is the grandmother, her daughter Valua, and Valua's daughter Vesta. So they've kept the V theme going. Vivienne was due to have some of her work shown by a gallery, and it caused severe backlash. So people were calling for her cancellation. They wanted her to burn on the pyre because of an alleged involvement in the suicide of her late husband's former wife. And it is alleged. But the intense backlash and furor, is that how you say that word? Caused the gallery to drop Vivienne's work. They didn't want to get involved in the drama. However, that drama caught the attention of other gallerists, and they were all frothing at the attention that Vivienne's work was getting, and therefore made offers to showcase her work. So looking at the work, it's looking at cancel culture, it's looking at familial ties, it's looking at art itself and what creation costs. I would say the book overall has a bit of a surreal, almost absurdist energy to it, especially the ending. The ending is bonkers. The ending is probably something that could be quite polarizing, or some people might find full on. I feel like it does suit the character of the book and the story itself. I felt like it was quite plausible in relation to the entire plot. It is ludicrous and scandalous though, but I enjoyed it. In this book, I would say there are some fever dream-esque moments, which I wasn't such a huge fan of because I just don't really enjoy those in general. There are also some horror elements in here, so be advised, especially to do with bodily functions. Didn't faze me. I was just along for the crazy ride, to be honest. I had no idea how this story was going to develop or where it was going to go, but I enjoyed it. There were even some parts with the characters where I felt like that reminded me of Beetlejuice's Delia and Lydia. So I just enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.25. I rounded it down to a 4 for Goodreads. But this was, quite surprising. I would definitely read more from this author. I believe the author herself possibly faced cancellation at some point. I'm not a huge fan of cancel culture. I think freedom of speech is important. That doesn't mean everyone's going to say things that you agree with, and you're allowed to disagree. But to cancel people who are in the art industry, or to cancel people for their art, I think that's whack. I think you should be able to express yourself, and if you don't like the way someone else is expressing themselves through whatever media that they choose to express themselves, don't consume it. I don't get the hater culture and the needing to destroy other people because they did something that you don't agree with. Like, I'm not talking about murderers and rapists. I'm like talking about people that make stuff that you might find confronting or offensive, but like, they're not for you then. That's not for you. That's just not your jam. Just move on, bro. But, the trolls are going to troll. And I found that the author did a pretty accurate portrayal of troll comments and the way that they sometimes feed off each other, the outliers that come in there, especially the ones of a religious nature. So Catholicism is featured in this book as well. Look, to be honest, I think I'm actually going to round it up to 4.5 stars. I actually did really enjoy it, and it was fresh and different. And like I said, I would read more of this author's work. And I'm so happy. The book is gorgeous because this is definitely staying in my collection. Had a fantastic time with it. And yeah, it has definitely reminded me that I probably should always keep an open mind when it comes to books. And that just because there might be some trends in regards to things I don't like, it doesn't mean that there aren't books that defy those trends for me. And in this case, yeah, a book about art and artists, which I've just never connected to before. And I think it's because I just don't have an art IQ. You know, I'm not well versed in it. I'm not educated in it. I love looking at art and supporting art, but I just feel art dumb, I guess. And so a lot of these books are intimidating to me, or I just don't get them because I don't have the knowledge. But this one I enjoyed thoroughly, just as a story, whether you like art or not. I would say if you've always steered clear of art books, it's not completely in your face. That is not the main aspect. But like I said, at the end, some things are done in the name of art and creation that, yeah, I don't agree with, I think are abhorrent, and I completely side-eyed Velua's choices in this aspect. I'm like, Jesus Christ, where's the consent? But it made sense to the story. So I'm like, yeah, okay, it tracks. But yes, thanks Lydia for recommending this. You were bang on. I did love it. So I'm going to round up to 4.5 stars. And the final book that I read was a book of poetry. It's by Hera Lindsay Bird, and it's called Hera Lindsay Bird. Seems women resembling birds is a theme in this vlog.
Oh, you look like a bird.
And I love that on the cover, she kind of makes herself look like a bird. This chick bro. I really enjoyed this. Okay, so this is what I would consider like a 5-star poetry book. I loved it. It's kind of weird. It's kind of funny. It's kind of millennial. This book does have a fuck ton of similes in it. For instance, this is sucking a dick with a raised pinky finger. Or one of my favorite lines in the whole novel. Bisexuality is like turning your back on God, but in a risque halter neck. That had me dead. That had me dying. The titles of these poems are fantastic too. My favorite is Keats is Dead, so fuck me from behind. Just so fucking fun. It was fun. Obviously with the book of poetry, there are going to be some that you like less, some you like more. She does go off about the character Monica from Friends, but it was a great collection. I think if you hate similes, you probably wouldn't want to read this, but I'm going to read you one of the poems from here because I think that's the best way to give you a taste of the author's style. But yeah, this was fan-fucking-tastic. So this is called The Ex-Girlfriends Are Back from the Wilderness. The ex-girlfriends are back, emerging once again from the tree shadows into the primordial burlesque of autumn, with their low-cut reminiscences and soft double ironies, trembling once again into their opulent seasonal migration patterns, a corsage of wilting apologies tethered to the bust. The ex-girlfriends are back, with their hand-beaded inconsistencies and various unhappy motives, dragging their heart like a soft broom through leaves, and they go on hurting, like the lit windows of a dollhouse in winter, with a too big horse outside. The girlfriends are back, but in a romantically ambiguous way. The ex-girlfriends are back and have transcended the patriarchal limitations of romance, unlike the new girlfriends, still handcuffed to monogamy, slowly writhing with their naughty post-heterosexual fatalism. The ex-girlfriends are back, with their unfounded Soviet aspirations and anti-hegemonic arts initiatives, draped over piano on the edge of the thicket, playing the lonely upper hand of chopsticks in their vague, tropical displeasure. The ex-girlfriends are back, and the post-girlfriends, and the let's not put a label on this girlfriends, all of them at the same time walking out through a beaded curtain of water, like too much Persephone and not enough underworld, wearing nothing but an arts degree, and the soft blowtorch of their eyes. You can feel their judgments come down upon you like 2 heavy butterflies, but there's nothing you can do about it. And worst of all, they don't even want anything. They're just standing there, performing many enigmatic half-blinks, re-mentioning Deleuze and Guattari in loneliness and natural lighting. The ex-girlfriends are back, with their sanity pangs and various life fatigues, like a stuffed crocodile exhibit still begging for death relevance in the glass case of your heart, but you are the museum director now. Walking talent on a stiff golden leash, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. The ex-girlfriends are back. like the liquidation sale of an imported rug megastore that's been liquidating for centuries, getting rich off all that tasseled goodbye money as they grind your face yet again into the hand-knotted, semi-Persian wool blend of their hearts, begging once more for closure. The ex-girlfriends are back, with their pre-distressed sadness and their talent, unlike yourself, who is both undistressed and talent-free, yet somehow still above them all, like the grand arbiter of happiness, laughing in your ermine neck ruff as you push them one by one down the waxed fuck-off chute of their bad erotic failures. Fucking brilliant. So loved it. It was definitely different to some of the poetry books I've been reading of late. So I had a really great time. I read a bunch of wonderful books that you might not have heard of before. Hopefully this is what I'm trying to do here, bring some books to your attention that have gone under the radar in terms of being publicized and advertised and marketed in the mainstream stores. So thanks to indie bookstores for giving showroom space to these books, putting them on the floor so they can get into people's hands. As usual, if you have any book recommendations of books that you think are phenomenal that haven't done the rounds on booktube, that are not in the mainstream bookstores, that are a bit obscure and unnoticed,
Notice me, senpai. Notice me.
do let me know down below. But until next time, get real weird with it, Star Child.
We are the weirdos, mister.